But a lot of the other things that you said were also, I found like really insightful. Like for example, when you said like positive compliments, for example, don't affect you too much. Like this is some like a realization that I've only arrived at recently, where I actually didn't like notice this about myself. You know, I thought like, there would be certain events that happen, like, oh, like I received like a text message from a guy that I have a crush on or something, or something along those lines, right? Like you just like get that rush of like dopamine, or like someone gives me attention and I enjoy it, and it just makes me really, really happy in that moment, right? But there's this idea that like, like what kind of like builds you up also kind of like brings you down. Maybe it's like the idea like what goes up must come down, you know? So in relation to like emotions, like in a way you're kind of like um instead of you having control over your emotions, now like external situations, external circumstances have that control over your emotions, basically. So if what you receive from the outside world is the reason that you feel happiness, right? Like in the absence of that, you're going to feel like a lack and a void and unhappiness, right? And I didn't realize that like until I didn't have it, like there was like a point where it's like I didn't have it anymore. And then I was like, oh, like why am I so like unhappy? Like why am I getting so depressed? And it was because like my happiness wasn't coming from myself, like it was coming from some external source that I wasn't even aware of. Like in the moment, it would make me really, really happy, but then, once it was gone, it would make me really, really unhappy. And so if you want to just be like an emotionally happy person consistently, I think your happiness kind of has to depend on yourself and not on like external sources. And another point about that is that like external validation is temporary, and people don't realize that like people these days have such short attention spans. Like you could do something, like you could post something like really pretty or really whatever attractive on Instagram or something, right? But you're like one post among like the thousands and thousands of posts that people see like in a day, right? And like they might give you a little bit of attention, right? And you might feel happy about like the attention that you're getting and like feel really validated. And if like external validation is like your source of happiness, like you'll get what you're after for a short amount of time, but it's temporary, and then that's going to go away and they're going to get bored of you, and then, or just forget about you because it's like they see a million girls like that. And then you have to do something else to like get people's attention again and like receive that validation again, So it's like it's just like a never-ending cycle. And so it's like if that's like what your happiness is dependent on, like you're always going to be chasing after it. And it's not like you have that inner, like inner sense of just like peace and contentment that just comes from you. And I think that relates a lot to what you were saying about how like your values kind of provide that foundation for your sense of self, basically. And I think like what you were talking about is like you have a very strong self-concept where it's like these things about yourself, and they're things that make you proud of yourself, like if you look at yourself, like that like who you are, right? So you know that you're hardworking, you know that you have integrity, and those are things that you've proved to yourself because that's what's important to you. Like it's not something that you did necessarily for other people. And I think that's really, how you kind of build that like sense of self. And it kind of does act as kind of like a barricade against the words of other people. Because like you said, like you can decide like what opinions to accept and what opinions not to accept. And that doesn't mean that you don't consider them, because it's like it doesn't mean like you're some like stubborn person who like, just has their view and doesn't accept or consider anybody else's opinions. Because like you said, like you'll still consider them, which is actually really good. Like I feel like I need to do that a little bit more than, you probably do. Because I've been called stubborn by my family before. But anyway, I'm digressing. But um, like you said, like you can just be like, okay, like that's just not true. Like I know myself and I have a really deep understanding of myself. So if someone tells me something that's not true, it's not going to affect me because you have that kind of like inner knowledge and like confidence that like it's not true. And like you have people in your life who truly know you and truly care about you and like uplift you and support you. And then there's other people who don't care about you, and you kind of understand like what they say doesn't matter, like their opinion of you doesn't matter because first of all, they don't know you and they don't care about you. So it's like, why would you take anything that they say seriously? And that's like a more like I think if more people understood that, it would actually help a lot of people, you know, because I think for a lot of people, like the words of other people hold so much power over them, and it's like it can really just like ruin their day. Like what other people say about them, like causes them to kind of like sway kind of like, you know, a tree in a wind kind of, you know, like because they have so much power over them and over their emotional state and stability that um they don't have that like ability to be like, no, like I know myself. I know that's not true. And because of that, like I feel like they just suffer a lot because they
Mhm.
don't have that. So I mean it's really great that you do.
There
And
is,
yeah.
however, for